7 times in modern history, the world came within minutes of nuclear war. In one of those cases, 2,200 nuclear missiles appeared on radar. Response time, under 10 minutes. But the attack wasn't real. The systems said it was. In 6 of those 7 cases, the systems were wrong. One person wasn't. The training tape. On June 3, 1979, a technician at NORAD inserted a training tape into a live system. The simulation was designed to mimic a full-scale Soviet nuclear strike. Within seconds, the system treated it as real. 2,200 incoming missiles. This should not have been possible. Strategic Air Command initiated emergency protocols. 10 B-52 bombers were prepared for launch. The President's emergency watch officer was notified. At this stage, there are only minutes to respond. No one assumes the system is wrong. The alert lasted 6 minutes. One technician identified the anomaly before escalation. However, protocol requires confirmation, not doubt. If the signal had continued, it would have reached the National Military Command Center. The decision window, minutes. The tape had been inserted incorrectly. The missiles never existed. The system had nearly triggered a real response to a fake attack. The Norwegian rocket. On January 25, 1995, a scientific rocket was launched from Norway. Its purpose? Atmospheric research. The launch was harmless, but the system did not interpret it that way. Russian radar detected the object immediately. The trajectory matched a Trident submarine-launched ballistic missile. This type of missile is associated with nuclear first strikes. The system classified it as an incoming attack. This should not have escalated this far. The Russian military activated the Cheget nuclear briefcase. The President was given approximately 10 minutes to decide. This decision determines whether nuclear retaliation begins. However, the object continued ascending. At peak altitude, it changed direction. It moved away from Russian territory. The alert was cancelled with 4 minutes remaining. Russia had been notified 25 days earlier. The warning never reached the people making the decision. Broken arrows. Between 1950 and 1968, the United States lost 11 nuclear weapons. These incidents are classified as broken arrows. None were detonated. In 1961, a B-52 broke apart over North Carolina. 2 hydrogen bombs were released. Each was 250 times more powerful than Hiroshima. One of the bombs activated 3 of its 4 arming mechanisms. Only one component remained, a low-voltage switch, the type used in household electronics. This was the final barrier. A declassified report concluded the bomb came close to detonation. The margin was not a system. It was a single component. Able Archer 83. In November 1983, NATO conducted a military exercise. Name: Able Archer 83. It simulated a full nuclear release procedure, encrypted communications, realistic command structures, participation of heads of government. To NATO, this was a drill. To the Soviet Union, it was something else. They concluded it was a cover for a real first strike. Nuclear forces were placed on high alert. Aircraft were armed with nuclear weapons. This was not supposed to happen during an exercise. However, one source disrupted the interpretation. Oleg Gordievsky transmitted intelligence to British services. The information reached NATO leadership. The exercise was quietly scaled down. The alert ended. Without that transmission, Soviet forces would have remained at peak readiness, with no clear reason why. The unseen asteroid. On June 14, 2002, a 100-meter asteroid passed Earth. Distance, 75,000 miles, 1/3 of the distance to the Moon. An object of this size can generate ocean-wide tsunamis. Estimated casualties, up to 4 million in urban impact zones. However, it was never detected in advance. This should not be possible with modern tracking systems. Astronomers identified it 3 days later, after it had already passed. At the moment of closest approach, no system was tracking it. There was no warning. There could not have been one. B-59. October 27, 1962. Cuban Missile Crisis. Soviet submarine B-59. Operating near the blockade line north of Cuba. Out of contact with Moscow for several days. The temperature inside the submarine had reached 45 degrees Celsius. Carbon dioxide levels were rising. Several crew members had lost consciousness. The crew had not slept in days. Conditions were deteriorating. American destroyers located the submarine. They began dropping signaling depth charges, non-lethal, but indistinguishable from real attacks. Inside the submarine, this was interpreted differently. Captain Valentin Savitsky reached a conclusion. War had already begun. B-59 was equipped with a nuclear torpedo. Yield: approximately 15 kilotons, equivalent to the weapon used at Hiroshima. Launch required authorization from 3 officers: the captain, the political officer, and the brigade commodore on board. The captain agreed. The political officer agreed. This should have been sufficient. Commodore Vasili Arkhipov refused. The torpedo was not launched. Above them, the United States Navy continued operations. Unaware. No American authority knew a nuclear weapon had been minutes from deployment. During the most closely monitored event of the Cold War, the incident remained unknown for decades. The American government learned of it in 2002, 40 years later. Petrov. 0:15. Moscow time. September 26, 1983. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, duty officer at Serpukhov 15, the Soviet Union's nuclear early warning facility. The Oko satellite system registered a detection: 1 intercontinental ballistic missile, inbound from the United States, then 4 more, total 5 missiles. Protocol required immediate reporting. This would initiate the nuclear response chain. Response time from authorization to launch approximately 4 minutes. Petrov did not report the alert. The system continued tracking targets. Ground radar showed no confirmation. The data remained unchanged. 5 incoming missiles. Minutes passed. Nothing appeared, no impact, no confirmation. The system was wrong. The satellite had misidentified sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds as rocket exhaust. Petrov had ignored protocol. He was reprimanded for failing to properly document the incident. He received no award. He died in May 2017. His obituary was published 2 months later. A journalist had called to congratulate him on an award. He was informed Petrov was already dead. What Petrov did not know, and could not have known, was that Soviet leadership was operating under the assumption that the United States was preparing a nuclear first strike. Had he reported the alert, it would have reached the highest level of command. Protocol would have done the rest. No further decisions would have been required.